Good morning and thank you for joining us today on our first Airsys 3M webinar. My name is Zoe Hastings-Hindle. I am the Sales and Marketing Director at Airsys. I'm joined today by James Dobson, who is our Marketing Manager at Airsys. And in addition, we have Paul Owen and Steve Ellis from 3M. They'll introduce themselves properly later on in the webinar. However, between them, they have over 40 years experience in PPE and 3M equipment. The webinar today is going to cover the 3M LiteCom and the FLX2 headset range. Firstly, Steve will speak about the differences and functionality of the products, and then the second half of the webinar will be presented by Paul, who will be discussing some of the successes 3M have had for these products, looking at certain customer types and verticals. One thing to mention before we start is that you are all in listen only. So if you have a question during the webinar, please type this in the question box and they will be read out at the end of the webinar. All questions will remain anonymous. If we don't have time to read your question out, we will contact you directly via email and provide an answer to you. So Steve, without further ado, may I hand over the webinar to you, please?
Thank you, Zoe. My name's Steve Ellis. Let me just give a bit of a brief introduction to myself. I've worked for the Peltor Communications division of First Aero Technologies, followed by and currently to date for 3M. I have over 40 years experience in electronics and radio telecommunications, 20 of which has been with the current Peltor brand. Today, for the next half hour roughly, I'm going to introduce to you three new product introductions, starting with our new CH-3 headset. Then I'll introduce you to the LiteCom family of products with focus on the very latest WS Litecom Plus, and then I'll finish up on the WS Protac XPi, which should be enough, and then I'll hand over to Paul and he's going to give you some information about the market verticals. Right, so without further ado, let me move on. So the CH3 headsets. We'll start off with a little bit of history. So back in 2002, we introduced the long-awaited H79 range. This covered listen-only headsets and a wide variety of different communication solutions with various kind of plugs, adapters, and so on, which catered for pretty much all the headset with external radio comms connections. It's been around a long time and it's been extremely successful, and the range had been progressively extended as the years went on. 2016 saw a game changer for us in the introduction of the new regulation framework, 2016/425, and coinciding with this, we saw the change in PPE hearing protection regulations move hearing protection products up from category 2 to category 3 within that framework. One of the obligations for the manufacturer within this change was that we will now have to recertify and type approve every PPE product every 5 years, which means a new product submission, which means quite an expense. And an approximate, just to give you an idea, an approximate cost of this is roughly about 10,000 euros per product, and we're talking about 10,000 euros per individual SKU, not for a family of products. So the aim was obviously to save astronomical costs being incurred every 5 years. We had to reduce the number of SKUs. So what we've done is we've come up with a replacement type headset, which was on the cards anyway, because the H79 being introduced in 2002 was quite long overdue a change now. And so we've worked long and hard on this project, and we developed the CH3. Which is actually development from our X3 passive hearing protector. You'll see on the screen there we have three versions. We have a listen-only version, which is all the listen-only versions are all designated with a prefix -112 at the end of the part number. There's a comms headset with the prefix 110, and these versions don't have provision for connection to two-way radios. And then we have the prefixed 111 versions. These are slightly different, and they don't look much different in appearance, but they use inside there is an amplifier for the microphone to make them compatible to com radios, and also there is a push to talk button on the back of it. They all share a common connector type, which is a 6-pin mini QG type connector, which is it's a commercially available connector, and we do a set of cables for various applications for these headsets. The main differences are we look long and hard at the design of these, and we try to make some changes where we saw shortcomings in the older H79 range. For the listen onlys and the 110 version type headsets, we've incorporated the capability for stereo sound. So the utilization of a 6-pin connector on the base has made this possible for us, because it means that we've got more connections instead of a 4-core cable as with the previous models. Also the major step change is, let me move on to the next slide now. And so we've got this is better now. So here we have a basic sort of layout of the headset with the features. So what we've done here is the 6-pin connector on the base has enabled more versatility of connection now. So we can enable stereo sound from a stereo audio source, which makes it very, very useful, perhaps for an example, the broadcasting industry, where some of the party line talkback systems are capable of dual channel operation, so that a user can talk to a cameraman, for example, can talk to an editor and a producer at the same time through 2 separate audio paths. The headset is much lighter now. So whereas I think we were about 450 grams with the old H79 series, for the headband and neckband versions, we're weighing in at under 300 grams for these headsets, so it's much lighter. The headband, we've addressed the comfort issues with the older headband, where people complain that even though the band was padded, there was a problem with perspiration because of the close contact with the skin. So what we've done with these ones, we've deliberately left it so that we have a large air gap down the middle of it, and so extended periods of wear should be a lot more comfortable now. We've pioneered this new dual molding, which we call a 2K type molding for the ear shells. So we have 2 types of plastic which we can co-mold into the same die. So we're able to produce a grippy type matte finish on certain areas of it, and then we can have the coloured bright yellow area, which is like quite shiny on the rest, which makes it easier to take on and off your head. So the part where you'd get hold of the cup with your fingers to remove it, we've deliberately made these with this matte sort of grippy finish. A lot of people are probably familiar with this kind of finish because we've seen this on the lids of computers and things more recently. The bright yellow color was chosen. I think we call this signal yellow. This was chosen over the traditional black because many of the applications are on dangerous work sites where high visibility is of importance for safety. Unfortunately, we don't offer a black version. We have considered this, and we've had quite a lot of inquiries for it, but this may be something we might consider at a later date, but it's not on the cards at the moment. We have a new microphone on this headset. So this is the latest IP68 type microphone. This is a submersible microphone now. Also offers slightly better noise cancelling, whereas the old microphone, the MT7, was gave 12 dBs of differential noise cancelling. This one gives 15, which is quite a lot. I mean, basically 3 dBs more is twice as much, so it's quite a big leap really in performance. Also the earphone speakers, we've devised a better and more efficient earphone speaker. The speaker now is more sensitive. One of the problems we had with the old H79 headset and Flex range was with some of the later low power devices, for example, some of the DECT handsets such as Siemens and so on, they had very low audio outputs at the accessory port, and this was problematic with the some of the with the headsets, because of the maximum volume available from the handset was quite low as produced into the headset, and in a high noise area it might easily be masked by the intrusion noise from the surroundings. And this loudspeaker we fitted in here is much more sensitive than previous versions. At the moment, we don't fit this speaker to any other versions. It's just limited to this one, but it may be rolled out into other versions later on. The attenuation of this headset is 31 dBs, which is slightly less than the previous H79 range, which were 33 and 34 depending upon the mounting. On the left-hand side there's a list of these are the basic, more common headsets that we've replaced with this, but the list that's not an exclusive list. There are actually somewhere like 250 SKUs that we've replaced with these things, and I think we've got pretty much all the applications covered. The only one we're waiting for at the moment is an 8X version, which is definitely on the way, and we expect to see that either later this year or early next year. The cables available, there's quite a wide range of cables available for these, including some with a couple of open-ended versions which can be terminated by the user. We get a lot of inquiries for an old headset we did called -09, which probably many people are familiar with. And this one was actually sold originally into to a well-known marine intercom manufacturer, and they fitted their own waterproof plug to it. And we've been selling this thing as a DIY fix for this type of headset. We can do the same now with a long cable there, 10-meter cable. You can put their own plug on. We've got cables for most of the common radios available, and we also, don't forget, we have the bespoke build facility at our Runcorn plant in Cheshire. If you have inquiries about any bespoke product that you can't find listed, have a word with one of our sales guys, either Paul or come directly to me, and we can look at this and evaluate it and hopefully help you. So we'll move on to the LiteCom family, because I'm conscious of time and I do tend to ramble on a bit. Right, the LiteCom family, there are currently 5 offerings in this, starting from the most basic version of LiteCom. This has been around for about 5 or 6 years. This one is a straight 8-channel 2-way radio, no frills, no additional features. It supports CT/CSS signaling tone for subchannels. Then we move up to the LiteCom Plus. On this version, we've changed the microphone over to the dynamic from the electret type. It also has probably the main differential feature is the auditory situational awareness, the level dependent active hearing function. This obviously allows you to hear your surroundings for safety reasons, and this has been, perhaps in the last 5 years, probably our most popular best-selling product. The most recent introduction to the range is the one in the middle, which is the WS Litecom Plus. So this is a development on the existing Litecom Plus, but incorporates WS Bluetooth technology. We're using our latest WS6 technology, which allows dual Bluetooth connection. Moving up the range again, we've got the WS Litecom Pro 3. This one was introduced late last year or mid last year to as a stopgap to cover for the deleted old WS Litecom, which was based upon an older product, and we had to discontinue it due to obsolescence of components. This headset comes pre-programmed with 16 channels out of box. Also, it has a further 16 digital channels, giving 32 in all. It's possible to over-program this radio with the correct programming gear, so it can be used for on the licensed radio band if required. The next one up the range is WS Litecom Pro 3, which is basically the same headset, but it's in dark blue as opposed to the signal yellow. It doesn't come programmed. It needs to be programmed, dealer programmed. It doesn't work out of box. And then you've got the WS Litecom Pro 3 8X, which is the bright blue one on the right hand side. This is the same type of headset, but it's 8X approved. Again, it doesn't come pre-programmed. It doesn't work out of box. It needs to be programmed onto licensed channels by the dealer. This is I won't dwell too much on this because it's there isn't a massive amount of detail on it, but it's just a quick view of the key features of the headsets, going up in range from Litecom up to the top of the shop, which is Litecom Pro 3 8X. What we'll do now is we'll focus on the WS Litecom Plus, which is the latest edition, and we'll look at the features of this headset. This one, compared to the old Litecom Plus, has now utilizes the full 16-channel range, which Ofcom released for license-free use in 2015. We missed the boat with the Litecom and the Litecom Plus because they changed the regulations after we'd released the headset, but we're exploiting this now. So with a full 16 channels, individual channels, not sub channels. It supports the usual 39 CTCSS tones plus the additional DCS tones, giving I think it's 122 I think sub channels in all. The radio is analog, it's not digital capable, this version, and this is what sets it apart essentially from the Litecom Pro 3. The range remains about the same, up to a couple of kilometers. There's an LPD version on 433 megahertz, but it's not for sale in the UK. We stay on the Euro 446 version for the UK. The Bluetooth connectivity is our latest WS6. This allows connection of two Bluetooth devices. They could be mobile phones, so you could connect two mobile phones or a mobile phone and a COM radio. The COM radio obviously has to be suitably equipped. In the case of Motorola, there's an additional software patch, firmware patch, to allow the Motorola radios to work on the normal standard Bluetooth arrangement. Then they will work with these. Again, we've utilized our latest IP68 microphone with good noise cancelling, and this is the waterproof one. The headset's got an external connection jack on the bottom, and it uses the old existing Litecom Plus type FL6 range of cables. It doesn't use the FLX2 cables, and it doesn't use the old Flex cables. We've kept it in common with the old LiteCom cables, so the headset can be a suitable upgrade without changing additional equipment. It has auditory level dependent situational awareness. The hearing protection on this is, I think it's 33 dBs. The headband remains the same as the older LiteComs. We found this to be quite a good rugged type band and perfect for the job. Let me see now what else we got. Oh, probably the main selling point for this headset is the voice operated transmission, which we refer to as Vox. This is adjustable for different kinds of different noise levels within the environment. The basic idea behind this is the microphone is used as a close quarters lip microphone in order to benefit from the noise cancelling capabilities, and when you wish to transmit, you speak loudly and clearly into the microphone, and it automatically switches the headset radio into transmit mode. For extremely high noise environments, there are 5 settings on the adjustment, which is accessed through the voice guided menu. So the lowest setting being the most sensitive for relatively low noise environments, and then you would have to progressively increase the step up the settings higher as the noise increases to prevent unwanted transmission. So this complements the current range. The current LiteCom Plus will be discontinued in November this year and replaced by a new version. The new version will be a signal yellow version and not the dark blue. I really can't comment on the reasons behind that, but that's a decision made by R&D. So we'll move on to the last product I'm going to show you here, and this is the WS Protac XPi. This has been a long-awaited thing. We've had the old WS 5 versions of Protac, which we call the XP versions, around for some years now, and we were hitting a problem with obsolescence of components, so we've had to upgrade the product, and we've decided to go down the road of a SKU rationalization into the same bargain. So what we've deleted is the old WS5, the WS Protac XP. We've also got rid of the Flex version, and also the old WS headset XP. I think went sometime around the middle of last year. And also the WS ground mechanic version of it, which was the same as the others, except it was in high vis and it had slightly different Vox function than the other headsets. So what we've got now is we've moved up from WS5 technology to our WS6. So this gives us the dual pairing capability. So this can connect up to 1 or 2 mobile phones. Mobile phone and radio, mobile phone, and it will connect to our existing WS5 Bluetooth aviation type dongle, which is the device that plugs into the external communication port of civil aircraft. And then this headset can be used just in the same way as the old WS ground mechanic did to talk to the flight deck. We've gone for an external jack on this. It's on certain models, not on all, and we're using the FLX2 type connection jack. This is common with the CH-3 range of headsets. So basically all the 111, 110, and listen-only versions of those cables, all the FLX2 cables will fit onto this headset in common with the CH-3. Again, you'll see the IP68 microphone, which is becoming, which is a common feature now. All new product will have this new mic. Voice operated transmission, we'll go back to that in a second. You've got level dependent technology, which gives you the auditory situational awareness, allows you to hear your surroundings and so on, moving vehicles, any moving hazards, just like you would if you weren't wearing a hearing protector. The protection level, I think, is 31 dB on this one. This is quite common for this type of thing now. We've got the existing stainless steel wire type headband on this. We'll just go back to the voice operated transmission, and there are a few other little points on this headset which make it differ slightly from previous models. The Vox on this headset is for when it's connected to when it's Bluetooth connected to a COM radio. So it can, this headset has got the capability to expand the radio's capability by adding Vox capability to a non-Vox radio. So, for example, if a radio with Bluetooth capability is PTT only and doesn't have the Vox feature, if it's paired up to this one and it's switched into Vox mode, the headset will handle the Vox operation. So, in other words, if you use the Vox feature on the headset by speaking into the microphone, this automatically switches the PTT on the radio, and thereby giving the radio Vox capability. This is a new thing. We've not done this before, and we figure this will be quite useful. Because we know that some Vox capable radios, when used with headsets, the Vox is not entirely reliable, and there are some difficulties with level adjustment and such things, so it makes them not so versatile for noisy areas and so on. There are other things with this headset. There are a couple of things to be aware of. The menu is in two levels, the user menu. There's a straightforward user menu, which is accessible by just pressing the plus and minus buttons together and holding them. But then we have a setup menu as well, which is which I won't go too deeply into, but it's you need to look in the user manual to access it. But it's something the user can do with the correct knowledge. If they go into the setup menu, they can get at some other features, and two of them are when this headset is supplied out of box, it doesn't have the dual Bluetooth connectivity enabled. This is deliberately disabled, and there are some reasons behind this, which came from voice of customer feedback. This is why we decided to go for this method. Also, the A2DP music streaming from a mobile phone is not enabled either. So you need to go into the setup menu to enable these, and then you'll find that the Vox comes up. The Vox comes up as an option on the front user menu, then, which can be accessed easily by the user for turning on and off, and the streaming capability is there all the time, and the dual multi-point connectivity can be used with two mobile phones and so on. So really, I can't think of much more to say on these products. We have product data sheets available for all of them, available on request. I think some of them can be actually downloaded from our web pages on our website. Without further ado, I shall hand over to my colleague Paul, and thank you very much for your time.
Yes, good morning, everybody. My name's Paul Owen. Thanks for that, Steve. If Steve's going to hand over control of the slides to myself, I can share my screen. Here we go. Just as a brief introduction, I cover the 3M Peltor range in the south of the UK. I've had experience of working in the PPE sector for the last 20 or so years, working for both PPE generalist distribution and more recently, the last 9 or 10 years, working for a number of different PPE manufacturers. I'm one of 3 of our team of Peltor hearing and comm specialists in the UK. I cover the south, as I said. My colleague Chris Rayner covers the Midlands region, and we have Jackie Graham covering the north and Scotland. So we've got good coverage to support Airsys and yourselves for any end user requirements. Part of the discussion today really is how we are operating in the new normal. What I mean by the new normal is since early March, we've all kind of been locked down and unable to see customers as we normally would do, and how we've been kind of interacting with end users and helping them for solutions in and around the comms products that we sell, as well as kind of having that day-to-day call and how the kind of virtual platforms allow us to do that. Virtual platforms available, we can use them all. I find Microsoft Teams is very, very useful. We've also done Zoom calls and Skype calls, etc. So it's all about how we've been continuing to support both customers and our partners in these more difficult times, if you like. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of go through a couple of examples of the products that Steve has just spoken about, where we've had the success since the lockdown. And also kind of how we've done that from start to finish, really. What the first slide shows here is how we've generally gone to work with key users or target users in the past. And that's generally been, as most people listening onto this webinar today will realize where the market is anyone who has a two-way communication need and has to have constant communication with their colleagues in conjunction with some sort of hearing protection. So we all know kind of the key applications where this has been, and that's generally been someone like pulp and paper, process industry, airports, construction's been a huge sector for us. Oil and gas, when it was in a lot better position than it is now, but obviously things are starting to pick up a little bit, and forestry. At the bottom there, it says food. Now, food really has come into fruition with comms needs since this kind of lockdowns happen and the safe distancing has become more apparent. There's a lot. They've been obviously working to continue to produce food for the UK throughout lockdown, and they've been classed as key workers. And we've been helping them to kind of make sure that the production can continue safely while we're having these new implications around the pandemic. But really, we can talk about any application being anywhere where safe distancing is required at the moment. So we're seeing a whole raft of really passive users. So people have been using earplugs and earmuffs traditionally for years and years, have soon realized that the ability for someone to communicate whilst wearing this type of products is almost impossible while they're kind of at a 2-meter distance. And we've also been supporting with the knowledge about kind of how important it is for wearers to not remove their hearing protection in the environment where there's a dangerous noise. How the actual SNR and how the product can be affected by for just a short period of non-use, if you like. So we've been really sort of working with that and with a lot of end users on that type of scenario. And it's really to help that type of customer really understand what they are purchasing, because if you're comparing a pair of earplugs, which have got a couple of pence value and normally stuck on a dispenser on the wall, and you're asking to someone to then start committing a couple of £100 right up to several £100 for some of the LiteCom products, it's really helping them understand what they are getting for their money and how this can support with their need to continue to work during these more difficult times. So it's all about trying to position the product that they need, understanding which product suits their needs, and then talking through how a training program and how someone who hasn't had experience of using any two-way communication in the past and getting that radio discipline, etc., that people aren't necessarily used to. So the first example is with our WS Protac XPi. We had a request from a large food customer within the dairy industry. It was a lead for one of our partners, and they had a whole raft of requirements that were needed to be catered for via the product. So there was a two-way radio in place, which on this occasion was the Kenwood NX3300, and they were using it with a competitor headset for a number of applications on site. What they wanted to do is necessarily expand this, because the number of wearers required for the comms was increasing drastically with the new way of working. They had a various level of noise in different parts of the factory. So some very high, some just around about the above the 80 decibels or 85 decibel levels. Situational awareness was very important to them, because as Steve's alluded to, it allows the wearer to have the ability to hear conversation and almost continue to wear the products in areas where the noise isn't of a dangerous level, but will be perfect for that impulse noise. If the noise does kick in or has that a very loud occasional noise, then they will be protected from those high levels, and all the other times would be the same, as they're not actually wearing that hearing protection at all. They also had a need to connect to a smartphone. In this case, it was an iPhone. And the interesting scenario here was they had a very, very poor phone signal. So they were actually using WhatsApp to take the calls. And what the issue obviously was when they were trying to do these WhatsApp calls with the current setup, the person would have to either run out of the noisy area or try to manage talking via a WhatsApp communication with loud noise in the background, which can be very, very difficult for the person receiving the message and the person giving the call. So a whole list of kind of requirements for us to have a discussion. So first thing we did is, with the partner, we set up the end user for a virtual meeting, which we did via Microsoft Teams. And we got all the key stakeholders involved, and that was from health and safety to product managers through to procurement, because a lot of these decisions can't be made by one department. Obviously, there's different requirements and different needs for each stakeholder, and we found it very, very helpful to get everyone on board early to make sure that all their questions could be answered. Through discussions, and as Steve's gone through, the WS Protac XPi seemed like the ideal solution. The cable for the two-way radio would be required because the Kenwood wasn't Bluetooth enabled. But what that obviously allowed us to do is to connect the iPhone to the Bluetooth to be able to take the Bluetooth calls via WhatsApp. So we then, rather than take our word for it and ask them to commit to several sets, we set up what we call a try and buy trial. These are available through Airsys, and you can talk to your Airsys contact about getting this via 3M. But basically, the try and buy is us sending a set, or if it's a two-way radio set like the LiteCom, a pair, down to the customer so they can actually use it in anger to make sure that it does actually do what they need it to do. Because these things are an investment for many end users, especially the ones who aren't used to using the smart hearing and have gone more on passive routes. We need to make sure that they A, can try them, B, that they work, and C, they're going to get return on investment pretty quickly on that one. So we set up a try and buy, and that generally lasts for a 2-week period. Following the 2-week, we had a follow-up call, and the product was given absolutely fantastic feedback. The customer came back and actually said the noise cancelling on these headphones is sublime. So they were kind of working in some pretty loud environments, stood next to process machines, generators, etc., well in excess of 95 dB. Some of these machines were giving out, and they were able to have conversations via the two-way radio and via the WhatsApp calls very, very easily, which was fantastic. And on the back of that, they're in the process of putting through an order for 24 engineers and an additional 8 members of staff. So we're getting an order over to those guys for 32 headsets via the partner, which was a great success. The next example is a couple from the LiteCom range. And as Steve said, there's a number of different products within the LiteCom family. The first example is the LiteCom Basic, the one Steve alluded to, where we had a long existing LiteCom user within the paper manufacturing sector. They had been using LiteCom for several years, but because of the new restrictions and safe distancing, there was a lot more of the employees who needed this product. So they contacted us directly on this occasion to see if we could get a new product down to them pretty quickly. And it was all about trying to keep those employees connected at a distance. So the recommendation on this occasion was a straightforward one. It was an extension of their existing product. They had a good understanding of the products, and the situational awareness wasn't really paramount for them. They didn't need that LiteCom Plus situational awareness. They wanted to carry on as they did with the LiteCom products, as well as kind of working for them. It was a cost implication of upgrading them to the LiteCom Plus or WS Litecom Plus on this occasion, even though the products would have been able to communicate with one another via the two-way radio. It wasn't paramount for the situational awareness, and they could keep their cost in check with doing that. On the back of kind of having these conversations, they ordered 40 more sets from us for their Northwest site, and there's a potential order coming for the same amount from the Southeast site. So again, we're having some really good numbers come through, and us being able to support them quickly was paramount. The next example is from our new WS Litecom Plus. This was a bit of work which started back end of last year. Our customer was in contact with us, looking at in and around communication solutions. They didn't have any type of two-way radio on site at the moment, and they were looking about how that may work for them. As it kind of crept into early January and the pandemic kind of took hold, this requirement really was pushed up the agenda, and the matter became more and more pressing for us to get some support for them. The factory has a very large floor space, very elongated linear machinery, where people were trying to communicate whilst wearing hearing protection kind of sometimes 10, 20, 30 meters away, shouting, hand signals, very difficult and an unsafe way of trying to communicate with quite complex machinery, which if it did go wrong could cause some issues. They need their teams connected for efficiency and productivity, and the productivity was kind of proven. The amount of downtime we were trying to work out with the customer from someone trying to find a colleague, trying to communicate or miscommunicate from very simple instructions across a production line. There was a lot of productivity kind of being missed because of that inability to communicate. Situational awareness was absolutely fantastic for these guys as well, because they had both the distance work, and also they had a number of occasions where they were able to communicate with each other 2 meters apart, where there was no loud background noise, and speech was able to recognize very easily via the situational awareness level dependent microphones. The Bluetooth ability was a nice to have, but on this occasion, because there was such a demand on our LiteCom Plus, we actually had the situation where we recommended the WS Litecom Plus because we had an issue with supplying the standard LiteCom products, and the ability to have that Bluetooth could work well for answering phone calls, even though they necessarily didn't need that as one of their wish lists. So again, we set up a Teams call with both the partner and the end user, and we actually conducted the call whilst wearing the product. So it was a fantastic kind of visual display of how the communications work via the Bluetooth, with actually having the conversation via the Teams call, having the Bluetooth connection into the laptop, and we actually conducted the call whilst wearing the product the whole way through, which was a nice little nice way to communicate. The features all met the requirements. So we spoke about how the two-way radio would work using the Vox. So no additional two-way communication is needed. It's all built into the headset, so no investment required for a two-way radio. It's that one product will meet all their needs. And the safe distancing would need to be expanded to a large majority of staff. So again, the try and buy was set up. Obviously, we sent down a pair of these because one wouldn't work very well to an existing non-radio user, two-way radio user. And again, the feedback was absolutely fantastic. They managed to use our instructions to disinfect and clean the products to make sure that a number of people were able to use the product while it was on the 2-week trial. And they actually placed an order before the 2-week trial was up for 60 units. So a really big investment for that customer. And then, believe it or not, it was another department could see what the first section had done. We had very quickly then received an additional 60 units from another department. So you're kind of building up a very big order on this occasion, which is a fantastic solution for the end user. And we also have another 10 units pending. So 130 units bought on the back of a successful kind of rollout, recommendation and trial. We are actually carrying out training as well via Teams, because a lot of the wearers have not had that radio discipline, as I mentioned beforehand. They think it's like a mobile phone where they can kind of talk and talk, as opposed to allowing the two-way communication to come through via the radio network. So there's a lot of work to be done on how to best practice and how to best use these products, which we're supporting the end user with via our partner. One product which is worth mentioning, so the LiteCom family has now the ability to work in conjunction with one of our powered air respirators, namely the VersaFlow. VersaFlow system has obviously been in very high demand while the pandemic is happening. There's obviously a lot of our VersaFlow products are going to NHS and frontline workers. So the actual VersaFlow products at the moment, I wouldn't recommend trying and get new orders for this. There's a lot of people trying to find these systems. Because we're prioritizing health workers, we cannot give any indication to industry when we're back in a stock position where we can sort them and allow them to supply the powered air system. But what we can do for any existing VersaFlow users who are using the M300 head top, we can allow the LiteCom system with an extended microphone to actually fit into the M306 head top and work seamlessly in conjunction with the powered air respirator. So they'll have the ability to then have their respiratory, their face protection via the visor, the head protection via the helmet, hearing protection via the LiteCom, and then the ability to have the two-way communications all within the 3M setup. So if you're aware, or if you've sold any if you've sold any VersaFlow systems with the 306 head top to any end users, it's definitely worth a conversation in and around the communications ability of the LiteCom and the way that can work in conjunction with the 306 head top and allow the powered air respirator wearer to be in full communications at all times. So moving on to the CH3, slightly different one for this one. We're finding the CH3 requests, as Steve's alluded to, as more of an upgrade or to help with the discontinuation of the H79 head top. So this example is exactly that. We had a situation where a H79 user was actually waiting for their partner to deliver the products. The breakdown in communication had meant the partner was unaware of the discontinuation, and there was a back order on their system for the product, which was never going to arrive. That back order delay meant the urgent requirement for these sets was paramount. So again, Teams call. It's a pattern emerging here, but Teams call was the best way to talk to this customer quickly and identify their needs. We actually made the comparison for the H79 to the CH3 headsets, and the only major kind of difference for the end user to understand was the attenuation. So we were dropping from 33 to 31, which was well within the noise limitations on site. And we again set up a try and buy to make sure that the product was adequate. Try and buy was a success, and the order was placed, and we received an order for both 30 head tops and the FLX2 cables, which was delivered to the customer very quickly. So really, to conclude what we've just been talking about, really the target markets for you guys to be addressing is anywhere. It's as simple as that. Anywhere who has a need for hearing protection and has now got the ability to communicate, and safely is the key word, is a target for any type of smart hearing, be it a situational awareness or a full two-way radio communication set. The end user successes have been the ability for us to be able to communicate with them in this new restriction. So where we would normally go to their premises with a couple of sets for them to try immediately, obviously we've been unable to do that. And this virtual meeting ability to actually have these meetings and talk about the needs, sometimes actually show the product via the screen and show the functionality and the buttons, they're not going to get the awareness of wearing the products and the example of what that feels like. But we can talk about that and then very, very quickly set up a try and buy via Airsys, who are able to get this system, and they've got their ability to contact us and get these requests through very quickly now. So these try and buys can happen pretty sharpish. The try and buy is obviously done on some amount of trust, but what needs to be made clear is the 2-week trial is 2 weeks. We really have a high demand for these try and buys at the moment. So if the product is lent to a customer and doesn't come back, we will chase and we will ask them back via your support. And there's a disclaimer in there. If the product's not returned, then obviously then it's invoiceable, because you can have some people who are not necessarily the most honest people in the world, who can pretend that they're having a long trial to get them through this kind of current safe distancing and never return the set or never pay for the set. So it is important that we track them, and we will be asking you for your support via Airsys with that if you did take us up on a try and buy. But there's a pretty robust system within 3M and Airsys to make sure that happens. And then we can either deliver to yourselves for you to walk onto site, or if there's a time implication involved, we can actually deliver the set direct to the end user, as long as we have the contact details and we're able to make contact to confirm that it's been arrived and who's going to return it back to us. The stakeholder inclusion is an important one for us as well, is to make sure that every single person who has an interest in this kind of investments are available. Health and safety from the hearing protection side is an obvious one. The production ops manager, as we've spoken about beforehand, is important, and also procurement, to make sure that they are involved in that process from day one, really. And what 3M can offer you guys through Airsys is also that technical support. You guys are going to be comm specialists through and through, and sometimes an end user, especially ones that haven't been necessarily used to using comms before, will ask all sorts of questions in and around the hearing side of things, and the can you dissect this information from our noise survey and the rest of it. We can take some of that pain away, because we are hearing and comm specialists, so we are be able to kind of take that passive hearing and do that comparison for the people who are now moving into comms for the first time. We can help them understand the dangers of non-wearer time. So there's a really kind of graphic kind of display we can put forward, where even if someone's removing their hearing protection for a very, very short period of time, how that attenuation can plummet, and how that kind of SNR level is nowhere near that needs to be from both earmuffs and earplugs. And productivity. We spoke about this being an investment. All these products are far more expensive than the end users necessarily used to, but we can actually use using a return on investment tool, is sit down with the customer via a virtual meeting, understand how much it may cost them for a production manager to be searching around the site for 10, 15, 20 minutes a day, maybe sometimes longer, looking for people, or trying to having machinery shut down because it's the only safe way of doing it with the lack of communication. How much that is costing the customer, and how quickly the investment of a comm set can be paid back, and how quickly these things pay for themselves. So it's really trying to get that first discussion and all the stakeholders involved to make sure that all of their interests are adhered to. That is the end of my short presentation. Obviously, hopefully there's been some questions generated on the back of that, which we will field now, but I'll just hand back to Zoe and allow her to close the webinar.
Thank you, Paul. Paul, sorry, are you going to be reading out the questions now, or shall I just finish off?
I haven't seen the questions, Zoe, so I'm hoping you've seen them, unless there's not been any questions asked.
Potentially not then. So what I'll do is I'll finish off the webinar. So first of all, just like to say thank you, Paul, and obviously to Steve. Some very insightful and useful information there. One thing I just wanted to recap on that you mentioned, Paul, is the try and buy scheme. This is a really great way to get the products into the customer's hands without any financial commitment from yourself. So please come and speak to us if you have an opportunity. In addition, we also have some marketing funds from 3M to support your marketing activities. These need to be approved first by 3M, but before the activity takes place. But again, come and speak to myself if you have any activities you'd like to do. You will see on that screen now that we have another webinar that's going to be taking place on Thursday, the 25th of June at 2 o'clock. This is about noise regulations within the workplace. It'll be great if you guys can obviously tune into that one as well. So From myself, from Airsys, I would just like to thank 3M for hosting the webinar with us, and thank you very much for everybody who joined us today. I hope you found it of interest, and I'd like to wish you all a very pleasant afternoon. Thank you.
So just before we close the webinar, I've just seen there actually has been a few questions asked. So as we're up against time, what we'll be able to do for all you guys and ladies who've asked questions, we'll be able to reply via email for you. So there has been some questions asked. My apologies, we've run out of time on this occasion, but we will respond via email.
That's great, Paul. Thank you. Excellent. Thank you very much, everybody.